My name is Jonah Ellis. I'm 31 years old, and this is the story of how one text from my father, telling me we were done for good, forced me to finally choose my own life over the version my family had built on my back. If you like real stories like mine, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss what comes next. I work as a project estimator for a mid-sized construction firm in Portland, Oregon. On the day everything cracked open, I was sitting in my truck outside a lumber yard, the pollen on the windshield catching sunlight like gold dust. My lunch in a brown paper bag beside me. The message came while I was checking a site plan for a remodel on Hawthorne. Dad's name flashed across the top of the screen, and beneath it, just one line: "We're cutting all ties. Don't come around ever again." No explanation, no call before, no warning light. Just a sentence like a door slamming shut in a quiet house. A little circle with typing dots appeared and disappeared twice, and then another message arrived. From my older sister, Tessa. She reacted with a thumbs up. A thumbs up, like she was confirming an appointment. There are moments where you expect anger, but what you get instead is a stillness so clean, it's almost a relief. I wish I could say I was shocked. The truth is, I'd felt the ground shifting for months, maybe years. I stared at the text until the letters blurred. Then I put my phone face down on the passenger seat and unwrapped my sandwich. I took one bite and tasted nothing. Somewhere behind me a forklift beeped, backing up. Birds argued in the trees. The world kept moving without me. My father is named Preston, but everyone in our neighborhood just called him Coach, even though he never coached anything. He runs a small home services outfit, handyman work, fence repairs, paint jobs, that he advertises with flyers at the farmer's market and a magnet on the side of his pickup. My mother, Susan, used to manage a fabric store until the owner retired and they closed. After that, she helped out with Dad's bookkeeping and took care of Tessa's twins most afternoons. If you looked at us from the outside, we were the kind of family that smiled in holiday photos. Matching sweaters, weekend barbecues, Sunday morning calls. But inside there were ledgers. Not just the money kind, though there were those too. The other kind, the one where love is calculated as a line item and gratitude is a bill that is forever due. I learned to read that ledger early. When I was 19, I co-signed on a used work van so Dad could take the business to the next level. He promised it would be for 6 months, a bridge till the big contracts come through. 6 months stretched into 5 years and an engine that died on a freeway ramp. When Tessa's boyfriend left and she needed a better apartment for the twins, I put the lease in my name because my credit was clean and hers wasn't. "You're good with money, Jonah," Mom said like it was a compliment. What she meant was that I didn't complain when my paycheck disappeared into other people's needs. Nobody called it taking advantage. They called it family. The day before Dad sent his message, I had told him I couldn't keep fronting the deposit for a warehouse space he wanted to rent on the east side. We were at his dining table, invoices fanned between us like cards in a game I was too tired to play. "It's just a timing issue," he insisted, tapping the table with a stubby pencil. "We get that space and we can buy material wholesale. Margins go up and you get paid back before you know it." He always said we when he meant you. I looked at the numbers and saw a story I knew by heart. Bills, hope, the math that never quite worked out. When I said no, the air changed. Not loud, not even angry, just cold. And the next day, the text. I picked up my phone again. The group thread, Dad, Mom, me, Tessa, was lighting up like a summer storm. "Mom, this is breaking my heart." Tessa, "You always were dramatic, Jonah." Dad, "Some people don't understand sacrifice." It took exactly 3 messages for the story to rewrite itself. I recognized the rhythm of it so well I could almost recite it. If you refuse to pay, you're heartless. If you comply, you're loved. I typed and erased 3 different replies before sending the only thing that felt true. "I'll be removing my name from everything I co-signed. I'll contact the companies today." Then I put the phone away and just breathed. Sometimes choosing yourself isn't a brave proclamation. Sometimes it's an email to a bank and a couple of forms that ask for your signature. When I got back to the office, my coworker and friend, Leah, was refilling her water bottle at the break room sink. She took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. "Meeting in 15, she said softly, and passed me a granola bar like it was a secret code. Leah is the kind of person who knows when words won't help and silence will. I took the granola bar and felt something in my chest loosen. That night, in my apartment in the Rose City Park neighborhood, I sat on the floor with my laptop open and a pile of old paperwork on the rug. It looked like I was sorting memories. The work van note, the apartment lease, a joint credit line Dad had tacked me onto just for discounts. I sent emails one by one. I called customer service numbers and pressed 2 for account changes. With each confirmation number, the room got quieter. When I finally closed the laptop, the clock on my stove read 12:07 a.m., and I was so tired I didn't even feel tired, just empty. I slept without dreams. 3 days passed. Each brought a different weather of messages. Day 1 was thunder, angry texts, voicemails with hard breaths and longer pauses, the sound people make when they are trying not to say something they will regret and failing. Day 2 was rain, Mom's voice softer, telling me about Dad's blood pressure, about a late payment here and there, about Tessa's twins and their field trip money. Day 3 was fog, nothing. A quiet so sudden it hummed. On the morning of day 4, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to it on speaker as I poured coffee. Mr. Ellis, this is Ken with Westside Storage. We have your name listed as a guarantor on a month-to-month unit, rented by Preston Ellis. There's a discrepancy with the auto pay, and I wanted to confirm your responsibility status. I didn't know whether to laugh or set the phone down very carefully like it might explode. At 9:15 a.m., between a call with a roofing supplier and a site walk, I dialed Ken back. It wasn't my storage unit, and I had no memory of agreeing to guarantee it. But when he read the agreement date, 3 summers ago, the weekend we had moved Dad's old tools out of the garage to make space for inventory, the memory clicked. I was sweaty, hauling a drill press into a rattling elevator. Dad slapped a paper onto a counter and said, "Sign here so I can get the discount." I signed. Because sons sign for fathers in my family. Because in that moment it felt like love, or at least a shortcut to it. "I'm not responsible for this unit," I told Ken. "I'm removing myself from all obligations. I'll email the documentation from my attorney." I didn't have an attorney, but Leah's brother, Marcus, is a paralegal who knows everything about everything. When I explained the situation, he called me back almost immediately. "You don't need me for most of this," he said. "You need a list and a calm voice. Ask for release forms. Be specific. Put everything in writing. And if anybody tries to pressure you, say, 'I'll respond in writing,' and hang up." He paused. "And Jonah, don't go to any meetings alone. People will try to turn a conversation into a commitment." By lunch, I had a spreadsheet. Every account, every date, every point of contact. Numbers in one column and boundaries in another. I wish I could tell you the hard part was over. That a few phone calls untangled years of obligations like a knot you just pull the right way. But that's not how knots work. And it's not how families like mine work either. When money stops being the channel, stories become the weapon. It started with my Aunt June, a voice message bright with performative sadness. "Honey, your mother is worried sick. Families should be there for each other. I just don't understand why you're being so cold." Then a message from an old neighbor, Mr. Cotter, who somehow still had my number. "Saw your dad yesterday. He looked worn down. Said things have been tough since you distanced. You know we only get one family, kiddo." They didn't say obligation, but they didn't have to. I could hear it in the pauses. I blocked the numbers, then sat on my couch and stared at a plant that had grown toward the window in a slow green curve while I wasn't paying attention. I remembered Leah telling me once that plants always bend toward light. It isn't heroic. It's just what they do to survive. Tessa came to my apartment the next evening. She knocked with a confidence that told me she knew I was home. When I opened the door, she was holding a folder and wearing the floral dress she uses for weddings and job interviews. Her smile was stage ready. "Hey, little brother," she said, stepping inside before I invited her. "Tessa," I said, and kept my hands in my pockets so I wouldn't do something reflexive like offer to take her purse. "Let's not make this weird," she said, laying the folder on my coffee table. "I told Dad I'd try to fix this with you." "With me?" She pursed her lips like a patient teacher. "Everything is in that folder. Accounts you're on. Accounts you've been removed from. There are still a few. Complications. She sat back on the couch, crossed her legs. If you could just keep the van note for another month, 1 month, and the business line until the spring, we'd be square. Then we'll refinance and, you can go live your life. I looked at the folder but didn't open it. No, Tess, she blinked. You didn't even look. I don't need to look to say no. The first times you say no to your family, your voice shakes. The 100th time, your voice is calmer, but your body remembers the shaking. I felt it in my shoulders and my jaw. Tessa saw it too. She always has a sixth sense for weakness. She leaned forward, elbows on knees. You've changed, she said, ever since you got that promotion. Ever since you started spending weekends with friends I've never met. Ever since, She waved a hand vaguely around my apartment. The unspoken phrase was, ever since you thought you were better than us. I'm trying to be better than I was, I said. That's different. Oh, come on, she scoffed. Dad gave you everything. He taught you to work, to fix things, to not be soft. And Mom put food on your plate when you were a picky kid who wouldn't eat anything but buttered noodles. And this is how you repay them? Repay. There it was, the ledger in a single word, the bill presented with a smile. I opened the folder. Not because I was reconsidering, but because I needed to know what story she'd written for me. She'd printed bank statements and highlighted my name in yellow. She'd made a list in her neat block handwriting. Van note, business line, warehouse deposit, storage unit, apartment lease for her place, canceled finally, and a credit card I didn't recognize. What's this? I asked, tapping the last item. She didn't falter. Oh, that's for the business. Dad added you because they offered a better rate for joint accounts. When? She tilted her head, calculating how much truth would help her. Last year, I laughed, not because it was funny. Remove me. We can't, she said, as if the decision had been made by the laws of physics and not by a form my father had signed without telling me. But like I said, 1 month. 2 tops. No, I said again. The word felt like a door that finally latched. Tessa, I love you. I love those kids. But I can't be the person everyone leans on when the roof is already cracked. I'm not strong enough for that. No one is, her face hardened. You sound like a stranger. I'm trying to sound like myself. She stood. Dad was right, she said. Success went to your head. She looked around my apartment. The bookshelf, the prints on the wall, the plant leaning toward the window, and her mouth twisted into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Enjoy the view. When the door closed behind her, I breathed in like I had come back up from underwater. I texted Leah. She came by. It didn't go well, Leah replied with a single heart. Not an emoji, but an actual photo of a small red paper heart she kept taped to her monitor. It was her way of saying, I see you, without asking for details I didn't have the energy to relive. 2 weeks went by. Work became a kind of sanctuary. Measuring, estimating, quantifying. These were problems that responded to effort and arithmetic. At night, I cooked simple meals and read books that had sat on my shelves unopened for years. I went on walks after dinner and learned which street smelled like rosemary and which offered the best view of Mount Hood in the distance. I started sleeping better. I didn't notice I was smiling more until a barista said, "Good mood, huh?" And I realized my shoulder blades were not clenched against my spine like they had been for as long as I could remember. The quiet didn't last. One Friday afternoon, my manager asked if I could swing by his office before I left. I braced without knowing why. He gestured to the chair across from his desk and then to a printout in front of him. I had a call from a man named Preston earlier, he said carefully. He said he's your father. My mouth went dry. He is. He suggested, well, he implied, that you used company time and resources for personal business. That you've been distracted. I sat very still. The sensation was so familiar, I almost relaxed into it. The ground giving way beneath me because someone I loved had pulled up the floorboards. I haven't, I said. I can show you my hours and the project logs. I know, he said, and the words steadied me. I've never had a concern with your work, but I thought you should know. Sometimes people try to pull you into their storm. Doesn't mean you need to bring an umbrella. I nodded, gratitude thick in my throat. Thank you. As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed. An email, subject line, final notice of intent. It was from a law office I didn't recognize. The body of the message was all formal language and sharp edges, suggesting, but not stating outright, that if I didn't reinstate my commitments, there would be consequences. It was theatrical in the way only certain kinds of official emails are. I forwarded it to Marcus. He wrote back 2 minutes later. Empty threat. They want you scared enough to comply. Do not respond by phone. Reply once in writing, asking for specific statute and basis for liability. If they don't provide it, block them. Breathe. I replied exactly as he instructed. Then I put on my jacket and walked to the parking lot, feeling like I had just stepped through a door that only opens one way. That weekend, my mother showed up at my building without warning. I watched on the lobby camera as she stood by the mailboxes, smoothing the sleeves of her cardigan as if she were about to speak in front of a class. When I opened the door, she smiled like we had bumped into each other at the grocery store. "Hi, honey," she said, and the word worked its way straight past logic into the old place inside me where I still wanted to be someone's child. I stepped aside. She came up, eyes scanning my apartment like it might give her answers she hadn't asked for. "I made you banana bread," she said, setting a foil-wrapped loaf on the counter. My mother's banana bread could fix anything when I was 8. Scraped knees, bad grades, the hollow feeling of being picked last for a team. She folded her hands. "Your father is stubborn," she said, and I exhaled without meaning to. "He's proud. He says things without thinking." "I know," I said. "I've always known." Her eyes filled. "He didn't mean that message." "He typed it," I said gently. "He sent it. He meant it." She looked at the floor like it might offer an easier version of the truth. "We're behind," she admitted. "We miss payments or make them late, and then things cost more, and then we're more behind. It's never how we plan. You know how your father is. He always thinks the next job will fix the last one." I waited. My mother had a way of talking around a request, until the asking felt like my idea. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands twisted in her lap. "If you could help for a little while," she said, voice soft. "Just until things settle. You can put it in writing. We can make a schedule. Your sister says you've been firm, maybe a little too firm." I thought of the plant turning toward light. I thought of how, for years, I had collected everyone's needs and stored them inside my chest like they were treasures, until I couldn't breathe for the weight of them. "Mom," I said, and my voice surprised me. How calm it was, how grown. "You taught me to be kind. You taught me to share. But somewhere along the way I learned a different lesson, that my worth is measured by what I can carry for other people. I'm trying to unlearn that." Her face flickered with something like fear. "You don't love us anymore?" "I love you," I said. "I just can't pay for it." For a second, the room was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. She blinked hard, then stood. "You know where we'll be," she said. "Or maybe you don't anymore." At the door, she turned back, eyes on the foil-wrapped loaf. "Do you remember when you were 12 and the middle school asked for a materials fee for the woodshop class?" she asked, voice far away. "We didn't have it. Your father put it on a card. He said, 'No son of mine is going to sit out because of money.' He did that because he wanted more for you." I remembered him whistling while he made dinner that night, like the sound could hide his worry. I remembered the way I had loved him then, pure, uncomplicated, like a kid loves the person who shows up with a solution. "I know," I said. "I know there were times you chose me. I'm choosing me now." She nodded once, as if that answer was both fair and unacceptable. When she was gone, I put the banana bread in the freezer, not because I was saving it for later, but because I didn't know what to do with something that was both a gift and a temptation. A week later, I drove past my parents' house on the way to a site in Gresham. The front hedge was trimmed, the porch light was on, the same blue recycling bin leaned against the driveway. For a moment, I let myself imagine pulling over, ringing the bell, walking into the kitchen where the radio was probably playing soft oldies like always. Then my phone buzzed with a new email. This one from the bank confirming that my name had been removed from the work van note, and the picture broke like glass in water. Late that night, I sat with Leah on a picnic bench by the river. We didn't say much. She told me about her brother's new cat, and I told her about a project that had come in under budget. The water moved, steady and indifferent. After a while, she said, "You look different." "How?" "Like someone who slept through the night." "I did," I said, surprised to realize it was true. "For the first time in months." "That's not an accident," she said. "Your nervous system noticed you closed a door." I laughed. "Now you sound like my therapist." "Good," she said. "How's that going?" I told her about Dr. Kim's office with the scratchy rug and a plant that looked perpetually on the edge of giving up. How Dr. Kim asked me one question that hooked into me and wouldn't let go. What version of yourself do you become when someone says you're responsible? The answer was not flattering. I became the person who canceled plans, who moved money around in secret, who apologized to strangers because my father was late again. "I'm trying to be someone else," I said. "You're doing it," Leah said, "even on the days you feel like you're not." When spring came, our baseball team at work put together a weekend game against another local company. I played shortstop the way I did when I was 10. Too eager, a little reckless, throwing hard to first because it felt good to be certain about where to send something. When I caught the final out, a shallow pop fly I had no business calling, I laughed until my stomach hurt. I looked over and saw Leah clapping and Marcus leaning on the fence pretending to be unimpressed. I wanted to freeze the moment. I wanted to write it down and read it to myself later when I forgot. This is what it feels like when your life is not swollen with other people's emergencies. 2 days later, I received a letter. Not a text, not an email. A real letter with my name handwritten on the envelope in my father's all-caps block print. Inside was a single sheet of paper, lined, torn from a notebook. It read, "You made your choice. We're making ours. Don't come around. Don't call. If you change your mind and want to be part of this family, you know what it takes." I held the paper like it might have a temperature. There it was. Love is contract, home is toll road. You know what it takes. I set the letter on the table and stared at it until the words lost their shape and became just marks on a page. Then I got out a pen and wrote my own letter back, not to send, just to have. "Dad, I am part of this family even if I never step across your threshold again. That's not a choice I make. That's a fact of blood and memory. But the cost to keep proving it the way you want is one I can't afford. If there's a toll for my presence, I won't be driving that road." Jonah, I folded the letter and slid it into the drawer with takeout menus and batteries and a screwdriver that doesn't fit anything but that I keep anyway. Some parts of our lives are that. Useful once, then kept out of habit until we don't remember why. The last time I saw my father that year was in late June at the farmer's market. I was there to buy cherries and bread, and he was there handing out flyers with a picture of his truck on them. He didn't see me at first. I could have turned around and walked away, but my feet chose toward. When he finally looked up, something passed through his face I couldn't name. Not anger, not relief, maybe just surprise that I still had a face he recognized. "Jonah," he said, careful. "Hey, Dad," I said, equally careful. We stood between the honey stand and a table full of sunflowers. People moved around us like water around rocks. "How's work?" he asked. "Good," I said. "Busy. We finished the 17th Street build early." He nodded like I had told him the weather forecast. "You always were good with numbers." "You taught me to count by twos in the garage," I said. "Remember? Painting the shelf boards. 2, 4, 6, he smiled despite himself. "Paint all over your shoes. Your mother was mad." We stood in the memory a moment, and then the present came back like a door swinging shut in a breeze. I looked at the stack of flyers in his hand. He looked at the cherries in my bag. "I got your letter," I said. "I meant it," he replied. "I know." He swallowed. "I thought you might apologize," he said, almost conversationally, like he was commenting on the price of tomatoes. I shook my head. "Not for this." He nodded, a sharp little motion that tried to be acceptance and failed. "Well," he said, "I should get back." He didn't offer a hug and I didn't ask for one. He moved away, and the space he had occupied filled with strangers shopping for honey. That night, I sat on my balcony and ate half a pound of cherries and watched the sky go from clear to gray blue to the kind of dark that makes city lights look like they're thinking. I thought about how endings rarely arrive with trumpets. Most of the time they come like this. Two people standing near sunflowers, saying very little. Both of them sure they're right, and both of them sure they're protecting something sacred. I want to tell you that in the months that followed, everything got tidy. It didn't. There were days I woke up with an ache so old it felt like it wasn't mine. Days where I reached for my phone to send a picture to my mother, and then remembered I didn't have a number I could use without inviting a flood. There were moments at work where a smell or a sound, a radio playing a song from my childhood, the thud of a hammer against wood, made me so homesick for a simpler version of us that I had to stand in a bathroom stall and breathe slow until the feeling loosened. But there were other days, too. Days where I made breakfast and ate it while the sun came through my kitchen like an apology. Days where I met friends for a hike and didn't look at my phone for hours. Days where I sent money to a local nonprofit that helps people untangle financial control without asking for mine back later as applause. In August, on a warm evening that smelled like cut grass, I fixed a broken step at the apartment of a neighbor named Delia. She is 70 and tells stories like people knit scarves, without hurry, with their hands. After I finished, she handed me a glass of lemonade and said, "You have helper hands." I laughed because it sounded like something my father would say with pride. "I'm trying to learn to use them where they're wanted," I replied. "That's all any of us can do," she said. "Choose where to pour." The first time Tessa reached out after months of silence, it was a text at 11:07 p.m. A photo of the twins with backpacks on their first day of second grade. No caption, just the picture. I looked at their faces. One missing a front tooth, the other with a serious look like he had already decided school was a business. And my throat burned. I typed 3 different responses and erased them. In the end, I sent a simple one. "They look great. I'm cheering for them." She read it and didn't reply. That was okay. Not everything needs an answer to be real. On my 32nd birthday, Leah organized a small dinner at a place on Division with long tables and candles in old jars. Marcus came, and Delia brought a card with a pressed leaf taped inside. We ate pasta and shared stories that made our shoulders shake with laughter. Somebody asked what I wanted for the year ahead, and I surprised myself by knowing. "Room," I said. Enough room to not mistake tightness for love. Later, I walked home alone. The air had that late summer softness that makes even the sidewalks feel kind. At my door, I paused. Across the street, a father was showing his daughter how to ride a bike. "Look where you want to go," he said, his hands light on the seat. She wobbled and corrected, and then suddenly she was moving on her own. He let go without ceremony like it was nothing at all, and clapped once when she reached the corner. I stood there longer than someone stands to watch a stranger's life, and then I went upstairs and turned off the lights and sat with the birthday card open in my lap. There was a line Leah had written in her slanted print. "Family is supposed to make your world bigger, not smaller." That's my ending, if there is such a thing in stories like this. Not revenge or perfect reconciliation, not a dramatic last-minute change of heart, just a widening, a life that fits, a version of love that doesn't require proof of purchase. Some days the ache still visits. A familiar guest who lets themselves in without knocking and sits at the end of the bed until I notice them. On those days, I make coffee and take my time drinking it. I call a friend and ask about their day and tell them about mine. I work and I work out, and I let the ordinary save me the way it always does when you let it. My father and I haven't spoken since the farmer's market. My mother sent a recipe when the holidays came around, her way of saying, "I think of you," without crossing the line my father drew. Tessa posts photos of the twins sometimes with captions that could mean anything. I keep my door unlocked for the version of them that might one day want to come without terms. I keep it locked for the version that doesn't. If you're where I was, if your love has been turned into a ledger and you're holding a pen that only seems to write IOUs, this is the quiet. Truth that took me too long to learn. You can be loyal to your family without being available for their every demand. You can love people and still refuse to finance their denial. You can leave a table without flipping it. You can decide that honoring your parents looks like refusing to repeat the story that hurt all of you. The night after my birthday, I took the banana bread out of the freezer. I sliced it and warmed a piece in the toaster, the kitchen filled with a smell so old it felt like a song. I ate it standing up, hands resting on the counter, and I thought about how sometimes a thing can be both a memory and a boundary. Sweet and firm, a reminder and a meal. Family should be about love, not leverage. It took me a long time to learn that. I didn't slam the door to make a point. I closed it because the draft was finally making me cold, and then I turned toward light. Like anything alive does when it's given the chance. That's not betrayal. That's growth. That's the kind of peace that doesn't need permission.